The Washington Commanders start 2-0 for the first time since 2011 after beating the Denver Broncos 35-33. Let's go. Greetings and salutations and welcome to Ref the District's instant reaction here. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. And as you can see, I'm wearing the onesie as Washington did beat the Denver Broncos 35-33 in a nail biter, Stoner.
That was so awesome.
It was great, but it was very nerve-wracking. Washington pins back Denver. They have to drive pretty much the entire field there in less than a minute. They end up getting close enough to get a Hail Mary, convert the Hail Mary, but they still need the 2-point conversion. And then Benjamin St. Juice locking them up. That's right. Washington remains victorious. Now, Stoner, this was anything but a gimme all the way throughout. Obviously, we all predicted such a high-scoring game between these two teams. But realistically, this was a game that was looking like it was not going to go Washington's way at all, as the first 3 drives by Denver ended up in touchdowns. And Washington's first 4 drives ended up with 3 points. Not going their way. Missed field goal. These long touchdown passes from Russell Wilson to Mims Jr. How did that first half feel compared to that second half?
You know what it kind of felt like is last year, the first game against Jacksonville, when Jacksonville was just kind of throwing the ball all over the place, big play after big play, and you're just looking like, what is going on with this defense? And so, like you said, Denver scored on their first 3 possessions, all 3 of them touchdowns. And then we need to figure out what this particular record is. But I'd like to see what Ron's record is in the second half of games with Washington, because it's really good. They've made some really nice adjustments through the course of a game when they're getting their butts kicked early on, and they make certain adjustments. And next thing you know, they're coming from behind and either taking the lead or getting close. But yeah, especially that first quarter was just sad. Washington gets the ball first, goes right down the field, but what did they have? They gave up a sack, and that just killed the drive. And then Joey Sly comes in, and we said it on the broadcast that if you put the goalpost up and then you moved them a full goalpost length to the right, he still wouldn't have made it. No, that's how bad that kick
from
was.
20 yards. It was that bad of a kick there. We were told the snap was kind of bad on that. Didn't matter for the rest of the game. As Washington able to get ahead, but it was something. They're again down 21-3 with, I believe, less than 2 minutes to go in the first half. Then they come storming back to lead 35-26 or 27 rather.
35-27.
So they gave up 2 field
35-24.
Yeah, they gave up
1 point.
Yeah, they gave up 2 field goals from after those first 3 drives, and then the Hail Mary is what got Seattle within scoring range here.
Denver.
Denver.
You got that Russell Wilson Seattle on your mind.
Yes, I do. But it was probably because he's having his own flashbacks of throwing the ball at the goal line with 1 yard to go. Just some strange decision making, but let's talk about some of the positive things here, Stoner.
Okay.
Ryan Robinson had himself a quality game. Rushing the ball, looking good, just out there. You've called Brian Robinson a Jag.
I have.
And I know that this is a game that, one game in all of it, but this looks like a good running back for Washington in this offense.
Yeah, he's definitely got to keep it up. And Ron/EB have got to figure out a way to get him the ball more often in the first half. Why do you have to wait until you get down 21-3 to realize that he can be a weapon? Sure, I've called him a Jag, but if you look at his games, he has Jag stats. Jag is not saying that he's bad. Jag just means he's just another guy. He's an average player. And that's what his stats have been. But this game, he was definitely not that. He was otherworldly in this game. He had 18 carries for 87 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Plus he had another 2 catches for 42 yards. So he had 2 21-yard receptions. So he had 21 and then another 21. He was awesome. He did everything. He was leaning forward. He didn't put the ball on the turf. He was fantastic. Brian Robinson was great in this game, and it seems like Ron forgets about him in the first half, or EB, who's ever deciding this.
Yeah, I think it's going to be.
They forget about him early and wait until you're down 21-3 before you start utilizing it.
Well, so one of the things, and we talked a little bit about this in our live play-by-play, is Eric Bieniemy comes from like that Andy Reid mentality of you use the pass to set up the run, and so pass, and then they're able to run because they have that momentum going for them. Now, typically you're not down 21-3 when that happens,
right?
But they do trust Sam Howell, young QB, and they're putting it a lot on him, especially early on. Now, I know we didn't quite capture those first half stats for Sam Howell, but this was a game where he threw the ball more in the first half than they chose to run it. Sam Howell had a good game, I thought. What were your thoughts on Sam Howell's second start of this season?
Yeah, when you say they trust Sam Howell, I think they definitely do, but maybe they just trust him a little too much. So in that first half, he had 35 dropbacks, and they ran the ball 7 times. That, I don't care if you're EB, if you're Andy Reid, if you're Sean Payton, whomever, that's not sustainable in terms of being victorious throughout the course of a season. 35-7, is that 5-1, a pass to run ratio? That's not sustainable. But you're right. They are showing confidence in him and allowing him to drop back that many times in a half. And he rewarded them after a little while. He had a couple of sacks he shouldn't have taken. He had the strip fumble. Luckily, Washington got back on that. And he didn't throw any interceptions. He ended up throwing for a touchdown as well. Almost 300 yards, 299. He was really, really good. Second half, he was really, really, really good. I was very impressed with him in the second half. The throw to Terry McLaurin is a big boy throw. Not many people can make that throw in this league. And he obviously can. That was a fantastic throw. He had to throw to Bates down the sideline. That was great. He had just some regular throws in the middle of the field that were really good. His receivers helped him out. Terry on that catch was huge. Logan's touchdown catch when he got hit in the head and he held on to it. Diami caught one that was behind him. I mean, Diami had 3 catches. He had 5 last year. He had 3 in this game. So Sam is out there slinging the ball all over the place. I still think they need to temper it a little bit, but hey, Sam was really good. He was better than good. I thought he was really, really good overall.
Yeah, a lot of good plays coming from him. Those sacks, as you mentioned, something that still needs to get cleaned up. I believe 4 sacks on the day.
4 sacks, but I think only 1 in the second half.
Yeah, but that's still 10 in 2 games. So that's not a pace you want to keep going for your young QB. But like you said, less in the second half. And we saw that adjustment for Washington last week against Arizona. 4 in the first half, actually a lot of those late in the second quarter, and only 2 in the second half. Here we see 3 in the first half, only 1 in the second half, which tells me he's learning and he's processing a little bit better. So hopefully as the season goes along, those get less and less. And hopefully as the season goes on, we see more and more of Chase Young, his return to action a week sooner than most people expected. And for the first half, I felt he was a little quiet.
Yes.
Second half, we were calling his name almost every time he was out there on the field, whether or not it was bull rushing or getting by or just persistent pressure coming off of that edge. His man, Montez Sweat, coming up after one of those sacks and telling him, like, yeah, you're back. You've got it. It was his first sack in more than 700 days.
Wow.
Stoner. What did you think of Chase Young? You particularly have been very critical of him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad he came out there and shut me up for a game. Absolutely. Because in the first half, as you said, he was non-existent. And the defense was non-existent until about halfway through the second quarter when they decided to show up or they decided to make the proper adjustments. We were killing JDR on the live stream, but they made the proper adjustments and they were wreaking havoc. Deron Payne was everywhere. And Jamin Davis, hello, welcome to 2023, Jamin Davis. He was everywhere as well. But Chase specifically had a fantastic second half. That's what we need from Chase game in and game out. Montez Sweat had his second fantastic game in a row. What did he have last week? 1.5 sacks last week?
Yeah, last week, yep.
1.5 again this week, as did Chase. So look, they've got 4.5 sacks in 2 games. They've almost caught their number that they were trying that they had in 2021 when they had declared they were going for the sack record.
Yeah, Chase Young having 1.5 that second season. He's already matched that number. Montez went on pace to crush his numbers from that season. Yeah. You mentioned Cody Barton here, and so we're going to shift a little bit to maybe some of the negative side of this game, because this was a much closer game than it needed to be, large part because this defense had a couple of gaffes there on the first few drives of Denver. One of those being Cody Barton, who we've seen time in and time out. He shoots the gap. Might not be the right gap. Often it's the wrong gap, but even when he shoots in the right gap, he's missing the tackle. Yeah. Cody Barton giving up a touchdown pass as he was just going the wrong direction, caught flat-footed on another big play by Denver. Yeah. What do you think of the new middle linebacker for this Washington defense?
Well, listen, linebackers have been devalued for a reason, and it's been devalued in this defensive scheme. And they're not the most important players. The front guys, the front 4 or 5, depending on what they're playing, and then the back 4 or 5, depending on what they're playing. The guys in the middle are just basically there to not screw up. So that's kind of the way I look at it, because you want Forrest and Curl and Fuller and Forbes making a pick, by the way, and then your front guys to wreak havoc so that the guys on the back end can make those plays. So Cody Barton did struggle again a little bit in this game as well. But, I mean, Denver scored 33 points. But the way it kind of feels defensively, I thought they were very, very good. I mean, like you said, 21 points were in the first 3 drives. And then after that, they figured
one of those drives was a one-play 75-yard bomb to Mims Jr., where Percy Butler was just caught looking at the flat, and Mims Jr. was wide open, easy touchdown.
So 33 points is not terrible when you kind of just break it down. 33 on the surface is bad. You shouldn't be giving up 33 points to Denver. But when you kind of dive into it, it's not that terrible.
Yeah. The first 3 drives, I think they had a 10, or maybe it was even in the first half, they had Denver had a 10-yard per play average, which is outstanding. And it's especially outstanding given the fact that the last 2 drives they had were negative drives. So the fact that they can have 2 negative drives and still have that kind of per play average was pretty outstanding. Another downside to this game was Logan Thomas. You mentioned him getting rocked on his touchdown grab. Yep. That did result in the ejection of the Denver player as he launched himself like a missile and took out himself and Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas was a feature part of this offense in week 1, and it looked like that was going to be the case again this game. What's it going to be like if he can't suit up for Washington for an undetermined amount of time?
Well, we saw Cole Turner make some plays. We even saw John Bates make some plays. And I think Washington only had 1 dropped pass this entire game, and that was Bates. But Cole Turner was very good. He caught some passes and had some good runs after the catch. And, of course, that one down the sideline to Bates was a really nice play that he caught before he got pummeled, held on to the ball. So, I mean, Logan Thomas is a really good player, but this tight end room, as we've talked about forever, is they like this tight end room. So now it's time for Cole Turner and Bates, and now maybe Curtis Hodges, if Logan's going to be out for a while. They've got to step up and cover those catches or those plays that Logan is probably not going to be able to make for a little while.
Yeah. So he is possibly going to be out. We'll keep tabs on that throughout the week to see what the team says, or if he ends up on IR, or if he's just going to get a designation as out, similar to we saw Quan Martin this week out with a concussion. Outside of that, there was a little bit of a scare with Deron Payne kind of coming up, wincing, limping off the sidelines there, but he did come back, and that's important, as Deron Payne had himself an entire game. But I mean, specifically, I want to talk about the series opening up the third quarter. The second half there was the Deron Payne series, as he was wreaking havoc. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I think first play he had, I can't remember specifically, but it was like a sack, and then a pressure, and then a play where he got maybe the running back or something down, and it was a 3-and-out for Denver, who's trying to come out in the third quarter and make a statement after Washington kind of dominated from the second quarter on. And it was a 3-and-out, and it was the Deron Payne show. And Deron Payne was very good. You didn't hear a lot from Jonathan Allen, but every time you watched the replay of Payne making a play, you saw Jonathan Allen getting double teamed. And both of those guys have talked about it. If Allen's going to get double teamed, then Deron Payne's going to eat. And if they decide to double team Deron Payne, John Allen's going to eat. So in this game, they decided to double John Allen, and Deron Payne ate. That entire defensive line, again, which is what we've been waiting years for, is finally paying off.
When you invest 4 first rounders in the defensive line, this is the kind of production you want to see from them. Not the scoreboard production, but the production from the defensive line there. Just do an outstanding job. Now, there were a few times there, Stoner, where the run game for Denver just seemed to be picking up some big chunk yards. I know a lot of that's going to be on the linebackers that we're still trying to figure out, and kind of they're much maligned there. Now, this was one of the reasons why Washington shifted to that 5-2 defense in the first place, because it's a lot harder to run on a team when you can't double block a Jonathan Allen and a Deron Payne, and you have a John Ridgeway or Anderson in there this year to really kind of gunk things up. Do you foresee Washington fixing some of those defensive, tendencies that they have this early in the season?
No, I don't think so. I think they figured something out after Denver started off so strong running. I mean, Denver finished with 122 yards rushing, which is really good. Anytime you get over 100 as a team, that's really good. But let's take away those last 2 drives where Russell Wilson was running quite a bit when he was getting pressured by Deron Payne and Chase and Montez and all that. And they're well under 100, because he had probably 30 plus yards in those last couple of drives when Denver was already down 35 to 24. They were down 11 points. So Washington's playing back, and Russell Wilson has those chances to run. But for sure, in that first quarter, they were gashing running the ball. But Washington made the adjustments and shut it down from there.
Yeah, Washington's defensive line might be letting up some rushing yards, but they did get after Russell Wilson. Last week, he was pressured the least amount in the NFL. That will not be the case when those numbers are released this week, as this Washington defense got after him. They did flip the script. The offense scoring all 35 points, which could be the first time that's happened in a few years here for Washington.
Well, let me give you a couple of stats offensively. Washington scored at least 35 points for the first time since November 2020, which you mentioned, which was the Dallas Thanksgiving game. But they scored at least 1 defensive touchdown in that game, maybe 2. And this particular game, of course, was all offense. And Washington had 9 players with at least 2 catches, the most in one game in franchise history. 9 guys had at least 2 catches. So you go all the way down, of course, to Logan and Cole Turner and Bates and all those guys. Even Byron Pringle had 1 catch.
We saw Pringle's show in there. That was crazy.
He didn't. If he had gotten 2, then that would have been 10 guys who had at least 2 catches. But those are a couple of things. And then 18-point comeback was the largest road comeback since November 4th, 1990. And so that's pretty impressive. That's the first time they've done that in, can you do the math, 33 years?
33 years, yeah.
Yeah, the biggest comeback on the road that they've had in 33 years. They were down 18 points in this game at one
very
point.
Similar to the time that Washington came back against Denver in the Super Bowl. Doug Williams getting the victory there. Sam Howell and the Washington Commanders getting the victory this time. We're going to go in depth tomorrow during the day after reckoning, so make sure you check that out here on Ref the District. I'm Nathan Perry. That's the Stoner. We're bringing you content for the Washington Commanders every day this week, so be sure to check that out wherever you're listening to your audio podcasts, or of course here on our YouTube. But until next time,
2-0, baby.
Be a fan.